Hello, third graders. Welcome back to art class. Well, today we're going to start a lesson that will actually take 2 weeks. So today we're going to do the drawing part. We'll start the first half of it, and then I'll tell you where to stop, and we'll continue on next week with some additions to our drawing. All you're going to need is a piece of computer paper, printer paper, or any kind of paper you have. If you have paper with lines in it, you can use that too. But if you don't, this would be great to use. Ask your parents if they can get you a piece of paper. A pencil is required. An eraser is preferred. And if you can get a hold of any black marker, that would be fantastic. But if you don't, let's just go with the pencil. That'll work. I'm going to start off by showing you a video, and it will have a step-by-step instruction on how to complete this drawing. And then I'm actually going to do some of the drawing myself and videotape it so you can see how it looks being done in pencil. All right, have fun. You're going to be creating a landscape today, and remember that the background is the land farthest away, middle ground is in the middle, and the foreground is the land closest to the viewer at the bottom of the page. On week 2, we're going to be doing some shading using crosshatching and stippling, but you're not going to need to do that for today. Learning goals. I can create a landscape with a foreground, middle ground, and background. Next week's learning goal is that you can create dark and light values through cross-hatching and stippling. Get your paper and use a pencil and see if you can follow these step-by-step instructions until you have a scene that looks as much like mine as possible. I'm going to do it with pencil and paper in just a moment. We begin by working on the foreground of our landscape, the part closest to the viewer. Now we're going to draw the middle ground. And finally, we'll do the background, the land farthest away. Next week, I'll explain shading using crosshatching and stippling, but you don't need to do that today. Hold your paper vertically. That's the tall way, from top to bottom. And we're going to start by drawing the foreground first, the land that's closest to the viewer. It's at the bottom of the page, and it just looks like a little sand. And we'll put a tree, or a palm tree, growing from the sand. And notice I started with a guideline and then drew little squares or trapezoids touching the guideline so that it has a texture. Then I drew 6 lines coming from the top of the tree, and each one of those lines becomes the center of a palm frond. Those can be zigzag lines that come to a point on the end. At the bottom of the tree, I'll put some plants, flowers, bushes, some tall grass. This is still part of the foreground. Next, we're going to do the middle ground. It's higher on the page and it represents distance. We're taking a 2-dimensional piece of paper and making it look like it's got space or depth in it by using foreground, middle ground, and background. I'm putting a little boat on the water with a kayaker, but you could put a dolphin jumping out of the water, or a sailboat, or a person swimming. In the distance, we need some more land so that we can have a background. So I'm making little islands. This looks like a picture from Hawaii. We're going to stop there. Okay, stop there for today, and we're going to talk more about crosshatch and stipple for next week's lesson. Save your paper, we're not done with it, and then you don't need to send me a photo until you actually finish the stippling. Welcome back, third graders. I hope you're having fun with your palm tree landscape. Oh, it looks like I've got a palm tree landscape behind me here. I hope you're sitting outside to do your art. Well, we're ready to move on to part 2 of our palm tree landscape using crosshatch and stippling and a black marker, if you have one, to finish the picture of your palm tree landscape. Are you ready? Let's go. Here's the picture I did last week. Now I'm going to outline everything in a black marker first. I'm just going quickly so that you don't have to wait for me to do this whole process, but take your time and stay in the lines. Next, I'm adding some hatch marks and crosshatch marks. These are little lines that I'm going to put on one side of my tree. So I'm just picking the right-hand side, and I'm starting off by doing a bunch of parallel lines very close together. Line, 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 line. And then crossing them with lines going in a different direction. And look how it's building up a shadow on the side of the tree. It almost looks like it's highlighted on one side and shaded on the other side. What I'm doing here is called stippling. A stipple is a tiny little dot, and I'm filling in my mountains with little tiny dots of marker. The way it works to create a shadow is that dots that have more space between them look like it's light gray. When you put dots closer together, it looks like a darker gray. And where you want your shadowed side, put your dots very, very, very close together, and it's the darkest value on the mountain. Notice I'm doing dark on the right-hand side of my mountains because I did dark on the right-hand side of my tree. So whichever side you decide is going to be the darker side, make it consistent throughout your whole picture. That means the sunlight is coming from the left in my picture and casting shadows on the right. I'm just going to keep stippling my mountains now. And then when you're done with the video, you can pause it and go back and try to catch up to each one of these steps. You can't rush the stippling. Although my video looks like I'm going fast, it's only because I sped it up. I'm really taking my time to make sure every dot is neat and not lines and dashes, but little tiny dots of black. There. Now I'm going to go into all of the flowers and the leaves and try to add some lines to them to make them look more like plants. You can even add some flowers to the base of your tree to give it an area to put some color. If all you have is a pencil, you can do this whole assignment using just a pencil, or maybe a pen. If you do have a black permanent marker, then you should use that to outline everything with. The reason I like the permanent marker is because I'm going to paint over the top of mine. If you're not going to paint over yours, I guess it really doesn't need to be a permanent marker. But if you're going to use watercolor paint like I am, I need mine to be permanent so I don't ruin the whole picture when I add water to it. Now at my house, would you believe I don't have any crayons? So I'm going to color mine in with watercolor paints. So here I am adding water to my watercolors and spreading it on top of my drawing. And I'm mixing some blues and greens together because it's always fun to mix colors together in watercolor so it's not very boring. Sometimes I mix green and yellow together. I'm coloring in my flowers and my sky and my tree right on top of my permanent marker. That's why I had to make sure it was permanent. When I did my mountains, I mixed green and brown together. You can do these in any color you want, and you could use markers, crayon, colored pencil. Some of you even have chalk at home. That's great. Take a look at my finished piece. Notice right here in this palm frond area, I started bleeding outside the lines. It's because I was rushing and I let two wet areas touch each other. Better not to go so fast. Okay, class, now it's time to take a picture of your finished masterpiece and send it to me on Teams.